December 2nd, 1805. At 25,000 feet, invisible to the human eye, an MQ-9 Reaper circles over the fog of Austerlitz. Below, Napoleon Bonaparte is about to execute the greatest tactical masterpiece in military history. The drone operator has 6 weapons and 1 question. Can future technology stop a genius of the past? Today we find out how many Hellfires it takes to cancel the glory of France. Austerlitz, Moravia, modern Czech Republic, dawn. Fog floods the low ground, hiding the Pratzen Heights, the key terrain of the entire battle. From the west, Napoleon, 68,000 men. From the east, the Third Coalition, Russian Emperor Alexander I and Austrian Emperor Francis II, 85,000 soldiers. The numbers favor the Allies, but Napoleon isn't playing by anyone else's rules. He spent the last 2 days performing weakness. He deliberately left the Pratzen Heights, the best position on the field, empty. He deliberately thinned his right flank. He wants the Allies to believe he's weak, to throw their main force at his vulnerable right, stripping their own center bare. And when they overextend, he'll hammer the center with everything he has and split their army in 2. This isn't a battle plan. It's a clockwork trap. Every regiment is a gear. Every maneuver timed to the minute. Napoleon stands on the Santon Hill, telescope raised, waiting for one thing: the moment the Allies make the mistake he prepared for them. Historically, they made it. The Russian and Austrian columns marched into his right flank, gutting their center. Napoleon launched Soult's Corps onto the Pratzen Heights, split the army, and by evening the Allies had lost 36,000 men. Austerlitz became the masterpiece. But let's change one thing. At 25,000 feet, the MQ-9 Reaper circles, an unmanned strike drone. Wingspan, 66 feet. Speed, 230 miles per hour. Time on station, 27 hours. Crew aboard, 0. The operator sits behind a screen somewhere far away, maybe thousands of miles, maybe 2 centuries. Napoleon thinks he's hidden Soult's reserve corps in the folds of the terrain. But for the Reaper's multispectral camera, those aren't soldiers behind a hill. They're bright thermal signatures pulsing against the cold Moravian landscape. You cannot hide from a drone behind a ridge. Napoleon thinks the fog conceals his movements. The Reaper's infrared cuts through fog like it isn't there. Every regiment, every battery, every courier on horseback, visible. And one figure in a gray overcoat standing on the Santon Hill, Napoleon himself. The weapons: 4 AGM-114 Hellfire missiles, 9 kilograms of warhead each, laser-guided, accuracy within 18 inches, and 2 GBU-12 Paveway 2 bombs, 500 pounds each, laser-guided, blast radius 100 feet. 6 weapons for the entire battle, for the entire war, for all of history. Payload: 4 Hellfire 2 GBU-12. Loiter time: 27 hours. Crew aboard: 0. But let's not underestimate the man below. Napoleon Bonaparte is not just a general. He is possibly the greatest tactical mind in the history of European warfare. He began as an artilleryman, a man of calculations, angles, trajectories. He remembers the map of every battlefield he's ever crossed. He personally positions batteries, personally times attacks, personally leads reserves. At Austerlitz, his plan is a trap stretched across 2 days. The Allies think they're attacking his weakness. They're attacking his bait. His army, the Grande Armée, is the finest in Europe. Veterans of Marengo and Ulm, marshals who in any other era would command entire armies by themselves. Davout, Soult, Lannes, Murat. 139 guns. Cavalry that breaks formations at the gallop. And Napoleon himself, center of the field, on a hill, visible to everyone. Gray overcoat, bicorn hat, telescope. He doesn't hide. He is the point around which the entire army revolves. For a drone at 25,000 feet, he is the perfect target. The operator sees him on screen. Gray figure on the Santon Hill, surrounded by his staff, 20 to 30 officers, aides de camp, couriers. Among them, men whose descendants will shape the future of Europe. Lawmakers, diplomats, scientists yet to be born from these bloodlines. One Hellfire kills them all. One Hellfire ends everything. 9 kilograms, 18 inches of accuracy. Napoleon ceases to exist. Austerlitz never happens. The Grande Armée without Napoleon is an army without a brain. But the operator hesitates. Kill Napoleon in 1805, save hundreds of thousands of lives. The Spanish War never happens. The Russian campaign of 1812 never happens. 600,000 men don't freeze on the road from Moscow. But kill Napoleon, and you kill the Napoleonic Code, civil law that forms the foundation of legal systems across half the world. The metric system, careers based on merit, not birth. Napoleon is not just a general, he's an architect. Kill the architect, and the building he hasn't finished collapses. Should the operator press the button? Save 600,000 lives at the cost of a world without civil law? And among those officers standing next to Napoleon, whose great-great-grandchild never gets born? Drop your answer in the comments. Fire or hold, and we keep going. Let's say the operator chooses a different strategy. Not Napoleon, his instruments. 7:30 a.m. The fog begins to lift. The Allied columns march toward Napoleon's right flank, exactly as he wanted. The trap is working. First Hellfire, the main battery on the Santon. 20 guns concentrated for the decisive blow. The missile falls from 5 miles up, absolutely silent, absolutely invisible. The artillerymen don't hear a whistle. Hellfire travels faster than sound. Explosion. 4 guns destroyed, neighboring crews knocked senseless. For every soldier within 200 meters, this is the wrath of God. The sky is clear, no enemy fire, no cannonballs, no smoke, just an explosion from an empty sky. Officers cross themselves. Gunners back away from their surviving pieces. In the world of 1805, when the sky strikes without warning, there is only one explanation, and it isn't military. Payload, 3 Hellfire 2 GBU-12. Napoleon hears the blast, turns. His battery is on fire, his face doesn't change. This is Napoleon. But the mind is already working. Second Hellfire, 4 minutes later. The bridge over the Goldbach stream, the crossing point for Soult's corps to reach the Pratzen Heights. Direct hit, the bridge is rubble. Soult is delayed 30 to 40 minutes. Napoleon's clockwork is disrupted. Payload, 2 Hellfire 2 GBU-12. Napoleon now knows. This is not an accident. 2 precision strikes on the 2 key points of his plan. Someone knows his design. Someone sees his dispositions. He scans the hills, no observers. He looks at the sky. Clear, blue, empty, nothing. But Napoleon doesn't panic. He studies the craters not as a victim, but as a mathematician. He calculates the intervals between strikes, 4 minutes. He notes the precision. Both hits struck the most critical targets on the field. Whoever is doing this can see everything and strikes only what matters. His response is pure Napoleon. He begins ordering units to move in erratic, irregular patterns, spacing out formations, abandoning predictable concentrations. He is hacking 21st century targeting logic with a 19th century brain. The bridge is destroyed. Within 8 minutes, he's found a ford 200 yards downstream. The battery is gone. Reserve battery pulled from the second line. Soult's staff is shattered. New chief of staff sent on horseback. The genius isn't the plan. The genius is the improvisation when the plan falls apart. Third Hellfire. Soult's command post. Officers, maps, couriers, everything coordinating the Pratzen assault. The explosion destroys the post. Soult survives. He was 20 yards away, but his command structure is gone. Orders don't reach the regiments. Battalions stand idle, waiting for instructions that won't come. Payload, 1 Hellfire 2 GBU-12, the last Hellfire. The operator's hand hesitates on the joystick. He has hundreds of targets on his screen, but only 1 shot left. This is the moment that decides if Napoleon wins by sunset or if the French Empire begins to crumble right here. Murat's cavalry. Thousands of horsemen massed for the decisive charge. 1 Hellfire into the center of the formation. 9 kilograms among the horses. The explosion panics mounts within 50 meters. They rear, throw riders, shatter the formation. The charge is delayed 20 minutes. Payload, 0 Hellfire 2 GBU-12. Two 500-pound bombs remain. The operator saves them for the critical moment. This is where the limitations hit. First, ammunition is nearly gone. 4 Hellfires spent, 2 bombs left. After those, the drone becomes a camera with wings. It sees everything, but can do nothing. The most expensive pair of binoculars in history. Second, Napoleon adapts. He doesn't know where the strikes come from, but he's already rebuilt the plan. 4 precision strikes delayed Napoleon's clockwork by 40 minutes. They didn't stop it, they delayed it. Third, Napoleon is still a genius. Even with the destroyed bridge, the lost battery, and the damaged staff, his trap works. The Allies are still overextended. The center is still exposed. Soult reaches the Pratzen Heights, late, disorganized, but he reaches them. The operator uses the last 2 GBU-12s on Allied columns retreating across the frozen ponds. 500 pounds each. The ice shatters. Hundreds of soldiers plunge into freezing water. Historically, Napoleon ordered his cannons to fire at the ice. Same result, same method, 200 years apart. Payload 0. Drone, unarmed. Loiter remaining 19 hours. Weapons gone, the Reaper still circles at 25,000 feet. Its cameras record everything. The Allied retreat, Murat's pursuit, prisoners, wounded. The operator watches Napoleon win the battle. Slower, uglier, costlier than in real history, but he wins. Because 6 weapons can slow a genius. They cannot stop one. When the dust settles, Austerlitz is still Napoleon's victory, but a victory with scars. Casualties higher, timing disrupted, the marshals are rattled. And Napoleon himself knows something struck him from the sky, and he could not strike back. He orders every hill searched, every forest swept. They find nothing. Because the enemy was never on the battlefield. The enemy was never even in this century. That night, Napoleon sits in his command tent. An aide brings fragments from the craters, metal that won't melt in a standard forge, an explosive compound with no name. He turns a fragment in his hands, studies it with an artilleryman's eye. He finds no answer. But he does something no other commander on this field would do. He calculates. He measures the blast radius. He weighs the fragments. He sketches the trajectory based on the angle of the craters. And in his journal, he writes a line that will puzzle historians for 2 centuries. Today the sky fired upon me. I do not know with what, but I know this. Whoever controls the sky controls the war. 130 years later, his words will prove prophetic. 2 centuries after Austerlitz, archaeologists will find fragments in the soil that no weapon of 1805 could have left. Tungsten rods, remnants of a laser designator housing, a palm-sized piece of composite wing material carried by wind from 25,000 feet. No expert will explain their presence in a Napoleonic-era stratum. The report will be classified. But in the archives, they will find Napoleon's journal, with the entry historians had dismissed as fantasy. The sky fired upon me. Now they won't dismiss it. Beside the fragments, under glass in a vault that only 4 people have access to, sits a piece of metal, stamped with characters no 19th century language can produce. USAF, AGM 114. 6 weapons slowed a genius, but didn't stop him. To stop Napoleon, you don't need a missile. You need a Russian winter. And winter is the one thing a drone cannot deliver. If you think a drone versus Napoleon is unfair, wait until you see what happens when a single modern anti-aircraft system meets the wood and canvas air fleets of 1914. Can one machine stop the Red Baron? Subscribe, because history is about to be rewritten again.